Kia ora koutou. My name is James Russell, and if you're here, you've found Mad Surf Stories. I'm a surfer, former journo, and author of surf fiction. There's a bit more about that at the end of the podcast if you're interested. But most of all, I'm an enthusiastic appreciator of a good story, especially if it has surfers or surfing involved. There's a rich vein of stories out there in the surf community, of exploration, heroism, yard sales, wildlife encounters, loose units, disasters, and just general epicness. It's those yarns I plan to mine with Mad Surf Stories, so if you have one or know of one, get in touch by emailing me at james@dragonbrothersbooks.com. Righto, on with the show. Elliot Foote, welcome to Mad Surf Stories.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks for having me, mate. Good to be
Yeah,
here. Good to have a chat.
Yeah, nice to have you here. So I thought before we crack into 38 of probably the more challenging hours of your life, we'll find out a bit about who Elliot Foote is. Where do you live?
Yeah, I'm living up in the northern region of New South Wales, on the east coast of Oz, so up near Ballynudgel, Brunswick Heads kind of area, just north of Byron Bay. And yeah, just moved up here about 5 years ago now, and really loving it up here, and can't see myself leaving anytime soon.
You're a Sydney boy.
Sydney boy originally from Bronte Beach,
Yeah.
down Eastern Beaches there. And
So
yeah,
if you were to drive from Sydney to where you live now, what are you talking?
probably like 8 hours, like a standard run. There's a few improvements on the highway here and there, so it might be a bit quicker, and depending on how lead the front foot is feeling. But yeah, no, about 8 hours.
Yeah. And obviously less crowded surf. Well, hopefully.
Oh, just more options, I think. You could definitely find yourself very, very crowded, but yeah, there's just so many good open beaches here that you can tend to get waves to yourself if you know what you're doing and you're kind of on tune with the sand and the swells and things like that. So you can be really, really lucky here. Some of the beaches get unreal, and then obviously we got Byron Bay's Pass, Lennox Head just down the road, and then Snapper Rocks up north, and Gowrie further south, Arrawara. There's just kind of endless right-hand point breaks around here, and being a natural footer, it's a bit of a heaven.
Yeah, I got to get up there. Sounds good. Sounds good. Hey, and what do you do, Elliot?
I'm a chippy. I'm a chippy by trade, and then I also do some public speaking work and stuff like that, and a bunch of other little things here and there, helping out mates with different businesses that they run, and also do like breathwork, ice bath, resilience workshops, and things like that.
That your own company?
Yeah. Me and Steph, so my ex-partner, who you'll hear a lot about in the next little short while.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, man. So let's go back to it was August 2023, right?
Yeah, the 13th of August,
And then
2023.
is that your birthday?
It was a birthday trip, so it wasn't my actual birthday. My birthday is the back end of September, but we were there to celebrate my birthday. But back end of September is kind of late in the season for Indo, so we weren't sure we were going to be as successful swell-wise that time of year. So we decided to bring it forward about 6 weeks and head over there in August. Yeah,
Yeah, cool. And what age?
I was turning 30, so it's my 30th,
Right.
32
Big one.
now, and yeah, 30th birthday trip with all the lads and Steph, of course.
Yeah. And so I know you were in the trip that we're going to talk about was from Nias to another island, right?
Yeah, so just north of Nias, about 60 kilometres, there's the Banyak Island group, and that's got a bunch of good waves there, the most notable being Treasure Island, and yeah, Bay of Plenty, and a bunch of other little ones around there. So
Yeah.
yeah, just north of Nias.
So you hit Indo, went straight to Nias, or did you muck around in Bali for a bit, or?
Nah, I kind of steer clear of Bali these days. We, being Aussies, we go there freaking too much. But went there a bunch of times growing up, and now it's changed a lot. Being a surfer and trying to avoid the party scene on those surf trips to save your coin. We just go pretty much like Kuala Lumpur or Singapore, and then over to Sumatra, and then hit the archipelago from there. So Steph and I found ourselves in Medan, which is the eastern side of Sumatra Island up in the north. And then we went and did an orangutan hike for 2 days, an overnight hike in the jungle up there. And that was incredible. Such a beautiful contrast to being constantly coastal in Indonesia. So yeah, something I think everyone should go and check out the jungles of Indonesia, especially Sumatra. There's such immense variety of wildlife there, and we only scratched the surface. And I'd love to get back over there and go deeper into that jungle because it's truly beautiful.
Yeah, I hear you. As a surfer, you end up often just on the coast the whole time, right? Like there's all these great walks in New Zealand. I haven't done any of them because every time I
Yeah,
get some time off, go to the coast. But it's sometimes when you're forced to do those things, you're just. I'm not saying your girlfriend forced you, but you know, it was a
yeah, no,
considerate.
100%.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, 100%. My grandpa gets the shits with me quite a bit because he's like a mad traveler and that. And me being a surfer, I only really see the coastal regions of each country. And went to Morocco this year in January and just pretty much surfed for a month straight and was so fortunate with waves that we didn't go and do all the typical
yeah.
best traveling trip and
Needed a
just pretty
flat
much
spell.
surfed. Yeah, well, kind of hoping for it, but stoked we didn't get it at the same time.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, so you finished your orangutan trip and then
Yep.
went to Nias.
Yeah, then we did the 24-hour trip pretty much, or 12-hour rather, down from Bukit Lawang, flew to Nias to Gunung Sitoli Airport, and then did the drive down to Soraki, which is Lagundri Bay, the classic right-hand Nias that everyone knows. And yeah, perched up there for the next 5 days as everyone kind of filtered in, and we're fortunate enough to get the back end of the best spell of the year that year. Two of the boys were already there and had a good couple of days, and then Steph and I rocked up, and then the rest of the boys, more or less, started
So you had a
filtering
pretty
in
decent
there.
crew, big crew.
Yeah, big crew. There was 12 total. So myself and Steph, and then 10 of my best mates. Yeah.
Holiday of a lifetime. Sounds good.
Yeah, meant to be the dream 30th trip. But
Yep.
yeah, have to go back and redeem ourselves one year.
Yeah, yeah. So Nias, done and dusted, and then you thought, and how long had you planned to go to the Banyaks?
The Banyaks was supposed to be a 10-night trip on a specific island up there in the Banyaks, and it was more like a surf camp rather than a surfing location. And then we'd have boats that would take us out to the surf breaks each day, and we'd be able to explore around and go spearfishing and stuff from there. And then we were actually going to continue on after that. We had another couple of weeks. We were going to go around Asu and stuff like that, which is off Nias, and then up to Fulu or Nias and a bunch of other little hidden spots up there.
Epic. So like a month in all or something you had planned? Just under?
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, I can't even remember. I think it was about 4 to 6 weeks we had planned, but yeah, cut that short after about um, just under 2 weeks in the end. Yeah.
Right. So the trouble started, jumped on the, well, it may have started when you saw the ferry, huh? Was it a proper ferry
Nah,
or
no, it
was
was
it?
not a proper ferry at all. It was just like a timber longboat. So kind of the classic ones you see when you're just going out to surf breaks from land or like going fishing or whatnot. They're about like 10 meters long by, I don't know, maybe 2 meters wide. As you're sitting, I'm 6'1" and in a seat with decent ergonomics, decent 90-degree angle in the knees. The ceiling of the boat's probably about 100 mil from the top of my head, so 10 centimeters. Quite a compact undercover region. And yeah, like you rock up on these surf trips and you see these boats and you're just like, oh yeah, cool. This is just Indo. This is how it runs here. You always know it's going to be a bit dodgy, but we didn't realize, I don't think, at the time that a 2-hour boat ride was 60 kilometers in the open ocean. So
Yeah.
you just, none of us had been to that region. None of us knew what we were really looking out for. And I guess the excitement of being on, a trip of a lifetime with everyone. We had a few beers already on the drive out there and just catching up with everyone. It was our first trip as a crew in years. So it was just awesome to get everyone together. And I guess, yeah, we probably were a bit nonchalant in boarding the boats. And there's two boats, take the full 12 of us plus staff out there. So we split into myself, Steph, Jordan, and Will on one boat, and then the other eight boys on the other boat. And
Yeah,
then,
right.
yeah,
And tell
prepared
us,
for the 60K crossing.
so they're 2 meters wide, 10 meters long. Do they have outriggers as well?
No outriggers, no.
Okay, so pretty narrow.
Yeah, super
So
narrow.
pretty rolly. Do they? Is that?
Yeah, once they're up to speed and it's flat, they're not really rolling. But once the kind of wind picks up, you start getting a bit of fetch, a bit of chop, bit more like wave activity, then yeah, they're definitely rolling. Yeah.
Yeah, and must go reasonably fast, huh? If they're doing
Yeah.
60Ks in 2 hours, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty quick. So the one we were on had one big outboard motor and then the other one had two smaller ones. So yeah, we were humming along when it was flat. When we left, it was just dead calm day. Sun was out. There was a bit of cloud in the northwest of where we were traveling. We were traveling north, and but that time of year, there's just this big rain squalls that come over every other around the same time. We left Nias at about 4 p.m. and yeah, typically around that 3 to 6 region of timing, there's a big downpour. So we didn't think anything of it. It was
Yeah. And
just
does
calm
most of
down the
that weather
water.
come out of the east, given that you'd be offshore in those islands? Does most of it is that the prevailing
Um,
wind
I'm not too
from
sure to be
Sumatra
honest.
out to the islands?
That makes sense because yeah, it would pull out. But I don't know. It seemed to come from the west that day, so I'm not 100% sure. I'd be telling fibs if I tried to give you a proper answer there.
So you were having a couple of beers on the boat, and everything was great.
Yeah, a couple of beers on the drive up there, a couple of beers on the boat, and yeah, just catching up with Will. We hadn't seen Will in probably about a year at that time. Will's my best mate from childhood. We grew up doing Bronte Nippers together and been best mates ever since. So yeah, just catching up with him and his partner Nikki. We're doing a Central Australia trip and a big lap, and then so yeah, they'd had some amazing adventures up until that point. So we
Yeah,
were
but she
just
wasn't. She
tuning in
wasn't
with
there,
him.
right? She wasn't
No,
there
she
with them.
was back in I think Northern Territory at the time where they
Yeah,
had their van, and yeah, she was patiently waiting for his return after 2 weeks, and
yeah, right. And so the other
yeah.
one was James. Is that right? Did you say James?
No, sorry. So Will Jordan. So
Jordan.
Jordan was on the boat with us, and he's a mate of mine from up this part. He's from Northern Rivers region, and a bit of a newer friend, but a great mate nonetheless. And yeah, he jumped on. It was his first time in Indo. So he'd only been to Medan, Gunung Sitoli, and Soraki for 2 days, and then this was his first crossing on a boat in Indo. So yeah, I mean, didn't really get the greatest Indo experience for his first time, but he's
No.
since been back and had a great redemption trip with his partner Cass as well. So yeah,
So you're cruising along. It's nice and flat. How long until the wind picked up a little?
yeah. So it's supposed to be 2 hours, probably about an hour into it all. That storm to our northwest just started kind of coming over and just being the whole horizon in front of the boat. We'd had a few like minor hiccups on the boat, just classic Indo, just like a bit of rubbish in the prop that they had to disengage. We were going a bit fast for the other boats. We'd slowed down. So there's just like small time things that were, eating away at the timing. And then yeah, about an hour in, hour and 10 in or something, this storm just kind of got gnarlier and gnarlier and then eventually completely encapsulated the boat and the whole horizon around us. And with that came just really strong winds and big downpour of rain, flashes of lightning, thunder growling, the whole ordeal as far as the storm's concerned. And yeah, during that, it's just like the boat starts rocking, start airing off waves. It's getting gnarly, it's getting cold. We were all just wearing boardies. It was hot and sunny, and now we're all shivering. And the boat's like, it's only got a plastic covering down, like a rolling plastic covering that gets attached by some screws at the bottom over some of the window openings. Myself and Steph were sitting at the window openings on either side, and then in front of us was like the main under cabin, and that was like, excuse me, like perspex windows, like perspex, just plastic kind of clear perspex, and yeah, like found ourselves holding down these plastic coverings because the screws had ripped the strings, and it was just all a bit
So
chaotic for the first bit.
was that the waves kind of hitting the plastic and you having to hold them out?
Yeah, yeah, because they're not zippered on the sides, like on the length, on the long sides, you'd have waves as you were kind of like getting splashed on the side of the boat that would travel through and in. So we're getting splashed while we're holding these plastic coverings down because you just can't hold it against that speed and wind and the waves kind of coming in. So yeah, that was all going on, and by now it's about 5 p.m. and I'm supposed to be there by 6. And then, oh, I was probably a
Probably
little bit later, to be honest. Probably would have been closer to 5:30 when this all started kicking off because, yeah, it was a gnarly storm, but I don't recall being in it for 2.5 hours before we had to
yeah,
get out.
yeah.
So
By the way, how many crew were on board? Who were they?
3 crews. So Fifan was the young deckhand, and then Janati, who was like the surf guide and translator. He spoke the best English out of the whole traveling party of Indonesians that came to grab us. And then Iqbal, who was the captain at the time.
Okay, so was that surf guide? He wasn't part of the crew of the boat. That wasn't his boat. He was taking you
No,
over. He was guiding you to where you were going.
yeah, yeah. So he was a worker from the island resort,
Okay,
and he was going to be like our surf guide for the next 2 weeks or whatever. And then Iqbal was like a subcontract captain for the boat ride over there, and then Fifan, I'm 90% sure, was like a employee of the island as well.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
So already was it at this point were you still going, oh, this is a bit of fun, or were you starting to think, hold on a minute, not really, this is getting a bit gnarly. At
Yeah,
what
no, I
point
was
did you
shitting
start? Did you
myself.
flick for a wheel? I think
I
I
was
heard you hadn't done an awful lot of boating, eh? You hadn't spent a lot of time on the water.
Nah. I'm more of a it's like just in the like close to the shoreline prior to this. Probably the most amount of boats I'd ever been on would be in Indo doing these kind of crossings and things. And I went did a trip down to HTs a few years earlier, and on that trip, you're just island hopping on similar style boats, to be honest. And then, but yeah, I've never been the biggest fan of speedboats. I don't mind sailboats, but when you're going super fast and you're launching off waves, and even on jet skis, I get a bit nervous and stuff like that. And yeah, this particular instance, I was terrified. Hey, I was like white knuckled. I was holding onto that window screen with one hand, and then back of Steph's chair with the other, and I'm just gripping it for dear life and just absolutely freaking like I was
Was the cap
pale
was the
white.
captain was the captain still fanging it, or had he backed off a little?
No, he was fanging it from the start. Yeah, he was launching off waves, and it got to a point where I remember looking, like the boat started kind of falling apart. There was like a timber covering over an anchor drop down in the front deck of the boat, and that had flow off, and then Will managed to get up there and put it back on without like and hit his head on the way out there, just like a knock, but not nothing bleeding or anything like that. But it was all a bit chaotic, and then there was like a like a tie off point on the front of the boat, and that had 4 connecting points, 3 of which had snapped. So this whole thing's just kind of flailing in the air and just moving around as we're moving around. And then the perspex next to the captain had a big crack in it now, and these were not things that were helping calm my nerves. But
Yeah. I wonder
and
if
as
he
the
was
water's
shitting
coming
himself.
in,
I wonder if the captain was shitting himself a bit and thinking, I just got to gun it and try and get there.
yeah, like to be honest, at the time I thought he was just a bit of a cowboy operation, but now I've learnt a lot more about him, and he's just such a gentle, beautiful human. And I put it down to the fact that he was subcontracting. That wasn't his like permanent job doing that crossing. And
Yeah,
when you get an opportunity like that in a country like Indonesia, you got to make the most of it. And for him to not get the clients there on time would have been, a bit of a cross next to his name. So I think
yeah,
he was just trying his best, and unfortunately, misjudged what the scenario had in store for us all. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and you get a bit used to the madness of, like being in taxis and buses and stuff, how crazy it is sometimes, and how crazy people drive. Probably thinking much the same on the water.
Oh yeah, totally. And like those guys, that's probably the route that they take every time they got to go for extra supplies with their family, and they just fang it over and fang it back, and it's normally sweet. But yeah, unfortunately, he was one of the only ones I feel like in that time period that stayed in the storm. Like I know that the other boat with a different captain, Tinos, who was an absolute absolute gem of a human, and searched tirelessly in the next few hours. But he took shelter behind another island, which is called KV Island. I'd butcher the real name. I can't think of it right now, but
Yeah.
there was about 6, 7 other boats sheltered behind there during the storm with our friends while we were going head into it.
Yeah, right. Had you gone past that island already?
Yeah. I think with that extra horsepower on the back, they thought they could just kind of punch it,
Yeah.
and you know, they probably would have been fine, but unfortunately, the storm swallowed the horizon, and our visibility was horrible, and it just got darker and darker and darker, and eventually we were doing the same thing in nighttime and waving a Mayday flashlight out of the cabin, and by
Yeah,
then
right.
the water levels like up around our knees while we're sitting in there, and we've got warmer clothes on, and we're just bucketing water out, trying to hope to get the water out as fast as it's coming in. But yeah,
So
you're
night fell.
fighting.
What do you remember? What time night sort of fell, or the sun went down at that time of the year?
Yeah, well, sunset was 6 o'clock
Yeah.
thereabouts.
Oh, right.
So
So
we're
you're
aiming to get.
due to arrive right then.
Yeah, we're due to arrive from 4 till 6 and get there at sunset and have
Okay.
sunset beer and dinner when we arrive. But unfortunately, the storm had other plans, and then yeah, we ended up. It probably got dark around just after 6. Really, like there was that many clouds and just so dense that it just completely swallowed the sun, and then yeah, we ended up bucketing out all this water, and by now it's pitch black, and just lightning's the only source of light, and a couple of flashlights inside the boat, and we were kind of optimistic, I'd say. Like we were bucketing water out, but we are kind of cracking jokes, and because the boat had now slowed down, I was no longer terrified. I was a bit more game face on, and everyone else was on fire, and everyone was just doing the best they could to kind of get water out of the boat and stay calm. And in doing so, we managed to put some clothes on and scull some water. Jordan had a great idea to scull some honey, so him and Steph did that while Will and I were bucketing water out of the boat. And then yeah, it just kept being super wild and chaotic, and the Indos were now kind of yelling at each other in Bahasa, and like it was getting a bit like we were at that point we were kind of going, okay, these guys are nervous too. Like this is no longer gone from being yeah, it's all good guys to being like shit, we're actually in strife here. So yeah, we just kind of prepared for the worst, and then
Because was that
eventually,
water level, despite you bucketing, were you just like hammering it out, and the water level was
yeah,
just and it was beating you?
100%. Yeah. We were bucketing water out rhythmically, me and Will, with some big, like pretty decent sized Tupperware containers. And then it was just coming in faster than we could get it out. And then by now, because of so much water underneath the flooring and inside the boat, the water level compared to the window height outside the boat is almost, you know, there and there. So a wave would come in every couple of seconds or like minute or whatever, and you just have be bucketing out like 20 liters, and then a wave would come and pour 50 liters in, and you'd be like, oh shit, like
Yeah.
gotta go faster, and there's only so much of a rhythm you can really do with that. And then it got to a point where we were about waist deep in water inside the boat, and the last thing you want to be is inside a boat as it's going down. So a big set came through my window, and I just went, nah, 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 everyone get the fuck out, get the fuck out. And I just dove out back first. And when I looked up, there was a flash of lightning, and I could see like the water level was pretty much 10, like a centimeter below the window height. So the boat was going down,
Shit. So that happened
and
real quick. That
real
last bit.
quick. Yeah, yeah. It was like two waves came in a row, and the next minute we're going down. And fortunately enough, everyone acted real quickly. And as soon as I was out of the boat, I looked up and Steph's head was there, and she had a life jacket on. So I grabbed her by the shoulders of the life jacket. I pulled her as Will pushed her, and she just flew over my shoulder. and then Will dove out with me. Jordan went out the center of the boat and was pulling at board bags, which was a great idea. Like Geordie saved our lives from doing that. And
Where
Will
were
and I
those?
saw
Where were
this.
those boards stashed?
So they were stashed within the 10 meters of the length of the boat in front of where we were sitting. There was
Right.
like a little undercover of the front, the bow of the boat. And then, so Geordie's now standing on the deck of the bow of the boat, reaching inside to the cabin and grabbing at board bags that were like half under him and half into the cabin itself where they were sitting, him and Will. And he managed to get like two board bags out there. And then,
Was there a couple of
so
boards in each one?
yeah, 10-day surf trip. You can imagine had
Yeah.
about four boards in each board bag
Okay.
and spearfishing gear and all the stuff you don't want to check in because of carry-ons, weight limits and things. So just random clothes and first aid kits and stuff, luckily, and all that sort of jazz. And um, yeah, Will and I joined Geordie on the front of the boat, and we managed to get two board bags out there, and then Will jumped on one of them, and I jumped back in the water and swam to the window where the three of me, Steph, and Will had exited, and managed to grab another board bag out of there. And then I remember tossing the board bag behind me and seeing someone on that. And then Geordie had a flashlight that was still working and was putting it down the center of the boat. And the boat's just, slowly tipping over. And there's just bags and random things floating in the cabin. And I was just grabbing at them and tossing them out, just hoping someone was grabbing them. But it all happened so quick that within about a minute of us doing this procedure, the boat had completely flipped and was now upside down in the
So were you
water.
were you full panicking at that point, or were you just like action mode? We need to get the shit out. We need to get stuff that's going to float. Were you thinking clearly, or were you just shitting yourself? I mean,
No,
obviously shitting yourself, but
I think it was more like, you know, like less panicky and more just flow state, like you go into a bit of a trance in these sort of scenarios where you're not thinking about the next 20 minutes, you're thinking about the next 2 seconds and
yeah,
you're just acting. There's no like chance to think. Like you're not going, oh shit, that's so and so's bag. You're just like fucking grab that, toss it out, grab that, toss it
yeah.
out. You're just like
But no
fully in the
dread, no
zone.
dread in the back of your mind, thinking we're fucking miles offshore. We're fucked.
Oh,
Like
it
none of
definitely
that.
came.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen in that moment.
Not then. There was too much going on, and there
Okay.
was a time constraint. Like the boat was going flipping, so we had to just grab shit and move
Yeah.
quick. But then as
Just
soon as it was
interesting what your
upside
brain does,
down,
in those situations, isn't it? How it reacts, and I guess fight or
100%.
fight or flight mode, and just adrenaline's pumping, and
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I like, and I'm only speaking for myself. I don't know how everyone would react in that scenario either. Like I've done a lot of adventure things in my time, like a lot of skydiving and rock climbing and things like this, and perhaps that made my tolerance for those sort of scenarios a little bit higher than normal. But yeah, for us, it was just, fortunately for us, it was really quick, actionable decision making. So. Yeah, but then as soon as we hit the water and the boat was upside down, then yeah, of course you start thinking about like the next hour, 2 hours, possible, inevitable, indefinite rather,
yeah,
rescue or whatever happens without rescue.
yeah. And tell me how many people out of the seven of you had life jackets?
We were all like given one on the boat, but due to restrictions of wearing them whilst bucketing water, I didn't have one on. We managed to get out of there with probably enough life jackets, to be honest. I recall wearing one following morning. I didn't wear one throughout the first night. Probably would have been a good idea because it would have kept me warmer. But yeah, we at least had five between seven, and yeah,
Yeah, I guess having those board bags and heaps of surfboards, you kind of don't need one, right? And in terms of flotation,
yeah, definitely didn't need one for
just warmth,
flotation.
just warmth.
Just warmth. It would have been a good idea to have one for warmth
Yeah,
in hindsight. I never even thought about that till right now because I was shivering the whole first night.
yeah. Hindsight's a
Uh,
beautiful thing.
yeah, well, God, yeah, jeez. I've learned a lot about hindsight in the last 2 years, I tell you.
Yeah. So there must have been once you flipped and there was no getting stuff out of it was done. You couldn't get any more out of it. There must have been a weird, slightly calmer phase where you were going, okay, let's get together, raft up or whatever. Is that what you did?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So once the chaos had kind of finished and we hit the water, being all, surfers and things like that, I felt a lot calmer being in the fresh air rather than in the cabin. And the water's pretty warm that time of year in Indo. It's probably 27 degrees or something. So like that definitely helped us out a lot. And yeah, we had three board bags between seven of us, so we just rafted up, kind of all kind of hunkered down together. And the boat didn't sink, fortunately. It was upside down. And it seemed as though the anchor had fallen out and hit the sand or something.
Right.
Because the boat didn't move. It didn't drift away. We had these three lights on the horizon. One, I'm not sure what direction cardinally, but it was like in front of us and then two behind us on different angles. So we could kind of triangulate our position throughout the night. And it seemed as though we were stationary. We weren't, you know, oh, there's a green light, and the next minute it's gone. It was like, oh, that green flashing light is still there. So we're not moving. This is actually really good
Yeah.
for us at the moment. Yeah.
Because there's quite a bit of current through there, is there not?
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely it's a bit of a weird current I've been learning. It kind of comes in and then back out from an west to east direction from the Indian Ocean through that Nias to Banyak's channel and then goes back out rather than
Okay.
going in and so much spilling down the I'm not sure what you call it. I think it's the Sumatran Strait or something between the archipelago of the Mentawais and Sumatra
Right.
west coast.
So it's almost like a tidal flow in and out of a giant harbour, or the
Yeah,
heads of a
yeah.
harbour.
Definitely. And we had watches, myself and Jordan, that had tides on them, and it felt like that. It felt like with the change of the tide, there was a shift in the current movement. But that wasn't till, the next day that we'd realized that. But yeah, yeah, the first night was like we were all rafted up on board bags attached to the boat through a rope. And the Indonesians had life jackets on, and the rest of us were on board bags. And probably about an hour into the oh fuck, the whole wig out moment that you
Yeah.
imagine in these scenarios and discussing what might be able to happen. Maybe CP people are out. There's no chance because there's this massive storm. All that sort of discussions. We just started feeling, extremely seasick.
Yeah.
Not
Of
being able
course.
to see the horizon on through the clouds and the lightning and the thunder and then the winds and all the fetch and board bags having four boards in them that are hyper buoyant, and you just end up, bouncing around and swaying and
So
without
you
seeing
were
that
all just hanging.
horizon.
You were hanging. You were just in the water, hanging onto the board bags, rather than you didn't pull the boards out and sit on them or anything.
No, at that time we didn't really think to sit on the board bags. I mean, on the boards rather. I had my chest on the board bag and my legs dangling in the water. And then I was leaning over my board bag and holding on to Will's board bag with one hand, and the rope and torch in another hand.
Right.
I ended up grabbing the torch from the captain just because he was kind of erratically using it when it was a solar battery operated device. So we needed it full battery for when someone would be there. But
Yeah.
at that time, there was no one out in the storm. So we decided to maintain the battery life of that. And then Steph was laying on her back next to me because she'd realized in the previous experience of being seasick that that's the best thing to do is to lay on your back. And something about equilibriums and things. And then she'd communicated that with the rest of the crew. So Will in front of me was the same on his back on a board bag. Two of the Indonesians were on his board bag, close to his legs. And then Artie was on a surfboard, which Jordan had passed to him from his board bag, which Jordan was then in his board bag to my left, with a leg rope attached to one of the handles of my board bag. So
Yeah. Right. But
through
you were the
Artie,
connection to the boat. You were the one holding the rope to the boat.
I
Yeah.
was holding the rope to the boat, and I was also holding Will's board bag. So every now and then he'd break free of my hands, and I have to like kind of swim and grab him and pull him back in, and then find the rope. And then Artie was attached to the rope on his board at the end of the rope. And then
Was it
I'd
pitch
noticed,
black? Pitch black. It would have been
Yeah.
if it would be cloudy. Yeah, there'd be no light whatsoever apart from the lights you could see on the horizon.
Yeah, well, like our visibility, like we could see each other because we were right next to each other, but without the lightning, there was no light
Yeah.
whatsoever. So, and the storm just kept going all night. It didn't really ease off at any point. So there's a lot of movement out there that night. Yeah.
Sheesh. Something else. So in the morning, in the grey
Yeah.
light of dawn,
Yeah.
was it
Yeah.
still blowing? Still stormy?
It was still stormy. Yeah. We were kind of like, I made a massive blunder. I'm hindsight. There we go. It's coming back at us already. I was holding the rope for about 6 to 8 hours and, just getting fatigued. We had no water or anything like that at this time. Our last sips were on the boat. And I looked to my right and saw that one of the Indos, I can't remember who, I think it was the captain, had the rope kind of like tied onto him, around him. I've seen photos of him since, and he had big rope burns around his neck and chest and things. So I feel like he had it wrapped all around him to try and not let go of it. And so seeing that, I was like, oh, well, why am I still holding this rope? My whole arm is like numb and my hand's wrecked from it just sliding back and forth in my hand all night. So I let go of it, but didn't communicate that to the rest of the group, which I've since learned in the first rule of sailing is never let go of the rope. And
Yeah.
I've, yeah, done that, not told anyone. And he's done that not long after and also not communicated it. And then at about 4 in the morning, I believe it was Steph, was just like, where's the boat? Where's the boat? And then, we all went kicked into gear and seasickness subsided instantly. And we ended up kind of freaking out and shining the torch around looking for the boat to no avail. And then we started coming up with a new plan and dishing out boards out of the board bags. And we all individually sitting on one and starting to discuss the second plan. The original plan was to basically wait till daylight, see what those three lights we had triangulated ourselves from were, if they were land or if they were boats or harbors or whatever, because we weren't familiar with the region, and then dive the boat with snorkel gear, which we had for spearfishing. If there's anything remaining inside the boat, we could use that, water, food, whatever. If
You
those
reckon there
things
were any
weren't
flares in
land,
there? You think there were any
I
flares
doubt
maybe?
it.
No.
I doubt it. It wasn't even GPS. There was nothing really on the boats to get us
Yeah.
there safely. But yes, that plan was gone. And then the next plan was basically how long do we have until someone starts looking? In which direction could land be? Uh, yeah. And based on all that knowledge that we'd kind of picked Artie's brain about because he knew the most English. He spoke good English too. Like it wasn't just, minimal. It was actually really fluent and easy to understand, and he understood us. So but that helped a lot.
Yeah. And were two other Indo boys, were they kind of actively chatting to you as well? And
Yeah, not directly. They were kind of chatting to us through Artie, just
yeah,
because their English wasn't the best. They'd give us a couple of sentences here and there, but I think it was just through it all. It would have been harder for them to, that mental capacity of having to speak a second language would have
yeah,
just been a bit like a lot. Like the first night was really brutal on everyone.
yeah,
I managed to be the only one not to vomit, but everyone else was vomiting a lot, like constantly, and no sleep, no food, no water. I think they were a bit more terrified than we were being in the water.
yeah,
For us, that's what we came there to do, but for them, they're traveling on boats a lot of the time and not really surfing. So,
yeah,
yeah, it definitely took it out of them on a mental capacity as
yeah.
well as a physical. Yeah.
And when you lost the boat, when you drifted away from it, was was there kind of any anger or anyone freaking out at that point, or
Definitely freaking out. There wasn't any anger. I think it was very fortunate the way we all behaved towards each other. Um, there was not really, initially when we first hit the water, there was a little bit of anger, but once we realized that we're in it together, it was pretty much a group cohesion at that point. And I mean, no anger, just purely what's next.
yeah,
Because yeah, in those sort of scenarios, you can't dwell on what's already happened. You got to just focus on what's next and step by step,
Yeah,
try and pull yourself out of that
it does.
situation.
Yeah, you can imagine people freaking and yelling and screaming. It sounds like if you had to be, shipwrecked, you kind of had a pretty good crew to
Oh,
do
I
it
couldn't ask for a
with,
better crew, really.
Yeah,
Knowing the scenario, I couldn't have asked for a better group of people to be out there with. Yeah, yeah, they're my family now. Still, we're all very,
yeah,
very close from this experience, and we'd all had previous experiences that allowed us to be level-headed in such a scenario and trust each other and back
yeah,
each other, and make the right decisions when they're needed, and make the wrong decisions and live with them. So,
yeah.
yeah.
True. Yeah. So you had a chat. What was the plan?
Yeah, the plan was basically Artie had informed us that the swell and surf report for that day was a westerly direction, so westerly swell, westerly wind. We knew we were on the eastern side of the island based on the Google Maps that we were navigating off the night prior when we were on the boat, which we now filled with water and we lost. But we knew that we were on the eastern side of the islands and we had to go west. We knew that, yeah, the wind and swell was coming from the west, hypothetically. Being a storm, it could have changed, but it was pretty consistent angles now. And we're like, okay, well, it's not a wind swell coming from every direction. It's constant direction. We're drifting from that direction, so the boat must be in that direction. So if we go in that direction, into the wind, into the swell, theoretically, we should be going west and making our way towards one of the 60 islands in that island chain, which hopefully has habitants that can then get a boat and help us out. So we started putting on, wetty tops, hats, zinc. I put on some booties because my feet were pretty bad already. And just yeah, getting warmer clothes, sun protection, and a board each. Unfortunately, none of them had fins because they were made for traveling over airports and things. Some of them didn't even have wax. So they were fresh boards. And then, yeah, we made the very difficult decision, but I thought, and I still think to this day, necessary to split into two groups: the Indonesian three, and then the four of us, and four of our traveling party. And
So those boys
yeah,
just stayed. They decided to stay put.
they tried to paddle as well, apparently, but they didn't really get as far. They were moving at a different pace, so it was
Yeah.
definitely
So they had
necessary.
surfboards too.
They did. They did. We
Yeah.
we had about nine boards between the seven of us.
Yeah.
So we gave them some bigger boards, some step ups. One had no wax on it, but they had clothing and stuff like that, so it wouldn't have been too slippery. We took the board I was on was a 5'10". I'm 6'1", like I said, and gave Steph a 6'3", which we kind of rotated around between Steph, Will, and Jordan. And I'm not sure what the other boards were, but yeah, the most buoyant board we took with us was a MR 6'3",
Yeah.
and yeah, then we
Yeah.
just kind of set off in that direction. And if you've ever surfed on an onshore day and you're paddling out the back and you just copping spray to the face for what, a 2-minute paddle or 5-minute paddle or whatever, unless you're surfing the points up here, it's a 10-minute paddle. It's shit. It sucks. It's
Sure
you're
is.
kind of squinting and you get your head cocked to one side. But yeah, we ended up committing to that paddle, and yeah, that pretty much was us for the next, I don't know, 4 hours at least before the wind backed off.
And could you see land at that point?
Not at all.
Oh,
Our
yeah.
visibility was about 30 meters in any direction.
Oh, so it's
So
still stormy at this point.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The rain was still happening. Lightning a bit less, but it was still a full storm cloud over us and encapsulating us. The only difference was that it was not pitch black now; it was dark grey.
Yeah. So if you had decided to go in the opposite direction with the wind and the swell, how far did you judge? How far would you have judged that to be to get to land?
Oh, geez, if we did
Much
that,
longer.
we probably would have ended up somewhere on the west coast of Sumatra,
And you were
maybe
that's like 60
20 hours
k's away,
later,
right?
or even further,
Right.
probably closer to 100.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, which doing 100K downwind on a 12-foot board would take you bloody 10 hours minimum.
Yeah.
So on a 510 no fins, you'd be looking at least, I don't know, 20 hours or something.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
an option.
Well, to be honest, in hindsight, I probably would have been the better option
Right.
because I would have made land and paddled for 4 hours less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 4 hours before it calmed down and the storm kind of abated.
Yeah, yeah. So like we stopped getting rain maybe 2 hours in, and then maybe 3.5 hours in, the sun came out, and that was our first actual knowledge of east to west. Um, some, people would know out there that the sun's only due east like 3 days a year, so it's more of a general direction rather than an actual concrete direction. And then, but we knew that, we're going roughly in the right direction. And then maybe another hour and a half later, so closer to around 12 o'clock, midday, we left the Indos around 8:30 in the morning. Um, we, you know, I was behind Steph and pushing her. So I was like, push, paddle, paddle, push, paddle, paddle, push to keep her moving a bit faster. Because by then, our 5 hour paddle was supposed to only be 3 hours and all this sort of jazz. The morale was pretty low. Steph was on day two of her period at this point, and it was a brutal night for her and for everyone involved. And Steph was just absolutely courageous in this scenario to be, you know, she was just a weapon. And in this moment, she was struggling, and I had the capacity to help her, but not without giving her some pretty stern motivational words,
Yeah.
to put it lightly. But
Tough it out.
yeah, just like suck it up, let's go, come on, speed it up. And she was
Yeah.
just like, really struggling. But unfortunately, there's not much time to be hyper compassionate in these sort of scenarios.
No.
You got to just do what's right and do what's needed. And she took it on the chin and kept paddling, and I kept pushing her, and she just drifted to the right every time. And I was like, why do you keep drifting right? Like, we need to go straight. And I'd push her right foot to the left, and she'd drift right. And I was just getting the shits because it meant every time I'd push her, my momentum would get pushed back. So I'd stop, and then I'd
Yeah,
have to
it's
like
hard
dig
going.
deep for three strokes and then push. And then now I have to change direction as well. So I was just like, look, I'm helping you here, but you're not helping me out. Like, go straight. She's like, I can't help it. I can't help it.
Did you ever
And
figure
then
out what was going
eventually,
on? She didn't. She
oh,
wasn't.
mate,
She never right foot
female
dragged you in
intuition. Female intuition is what was going on. She was magnetized to land. That's what happened. As
there.
soon
Oh,
as
right.
I pushed her she went right, and she goes, like, just, that's why I'm going right. That's why there's land. And I was like, no way. Like, what was that? It just classic. But yeah, she ended up spotting land, and it was on the horizon, this tiny palm tree, just way off on the horizon, probably like, I don't know, 7 or 8 Ks away or something. But we finally saw land, and there was hope bestowed upon the group, and we finally realized that, yeah, it's going to be a huge day, but we might actually make it. We might actually get a boat and send it back for the Indos, and we might actually get to see our friends and family again. And we're we're on here.
Yeah.
We're looking good. And then
When you saw that bit of land and you saw a palm tree, did you think that's just a tiny little, the typical desert island, tiny
nah,
little speck, or did you think it was part of something bigger?
mate, I thought that was Bingtangs, cold
Right.
beers,
Okay.
friggin' warm food,
Yeah.
bed, dried towels. I thought that was land. That was life. That was everything. That was, it could have been a palm tree in the horizon, but it gave us so much hope
Yeah.
that, like, it could have been anything, but it was the driving force we needed after 5 hours of paddling to be, or 4 hours of paddling or whatever, to absolutely nail down and go for it. And yeah, we knew there were 60 islands out there, so it couldn't be in any of them, but they were all quite densely situated in the same area.
Yeah.
So if we got to that island in 3 hours, and then we're like, oh, that's a bigger island with a resort on it or whatever. Like, there's no resorts, but fishing boats or something. Let's go to that one instead. It might be another hour, but it was um it was better than being in the middle of the ocean. That was for sure. But then, as quick as it came, it just disappeared. By the time we'd all seen it, the clouds swallowed it, and we were like, oh shit. We got to go. We got to go. Let's got to pin it in that direction. And then for the next hour, we're kind of all confused and shit. Did you actually see it? Like, did we actually just see that? And second guessing ourselves, and the direction was all different for everyone. Like, no, it's more this way. No, no, no. I swear it was more this way. And started kind of not arguing, but not being as confident with anyone's decisions, and everyone had their own opinion. And yeah, it just kind of threw a bit of a spanner in the works for the crew. But after about an hour, we saw land again. Um, and yeah, at that point, the first time we saw land, it was just hope. I cried. It was just a beautiful moment. We finally had a bit of hope that we were going to make it. And then second time we saw land, about an hour later, it was like, no, we're not losing sight of this land. Like that was a bad hour of decision making and running on chance rather than faith. And well, I just pinned it. I just shot off ahead as hard as I could, and basically didn't want land to disappear on us. I think I probably wanted a little bit of solitude as well, and just kind of shot off ahead and ended up maybe 100 meters in front of everyone. And yeah, the land just kept getting bigger and bigger, fortunately. And I was weighed down. I had like a cray diving net filled with zinc, denka rub, um, a fish, which was super random when we were just
What?
deciding what to do.
Where'd that
Yeah,
come from?
we were deciding what to do at 8:30 that morning, and we're sitting in a circle, and Geordie's given us one of these beautiful pep talks about positivity and optimism, and he's there going like, guys, we're going to stay positive. We're going to get found. We're going to get rescued. And he's doing these hand gestures, like just kind of big movements with his hands. And the next minute, as he closes his like a grasp, like clasps his hands in his waist at the water level, a fish was in his hands just randomly. And he's like, guys, I've got a fish. I'm like, what?
How
What do you
big?
mean you got a fish? He's like, mate, a fish just flew into my hands. And we're like, no, mate, a fish doesn't just fly into your hands. And yeah, sure enough, a flying fish was humming across the water and landed perfectly in his hands
No
as he,
way.
yeah, it was probably about, I don't know, 300 millimeters, 30 centimeters, like not big,
Yeah.
but
It's a
we
meal,
snapped its
huh?
neck and we kept it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
stayed on my back for the part of 6 hours.
Did
And
you eat it? Did anyone eat it?
nah, no, I
Oh,
actually, as I shot off from everyone, and I was making my way to land in front of me, it just kept getting bigger and bigger, this land. And I saw these between me and the land, there was just these two fins moving perfectly along the surface of the water and then just in unison duck down under the surface, maybe like 30 meters away from me. And I was like, no, like, fuck. Is
so the
this,
dorsal and a tail fin of a shark.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, shit, like, this is not good. I got to keep going though. I can't stop. And I was like, oh, I've got the fish. So I took the fish off my back and just pegged it as far as I could to my right, and just kept going and just tried not to think about him being the only one or him being a hungry one or whatever. But yeah, it was,
I wonder if it
yeah,
went. I wonder if it ate it.
I hope it did because it didn't come back and it didn't come
Yeah.
back to me and it didn't go back to the others. So fortunately, whatever, you know, if the gods gave us a fish, that was the reason for it. So we'll take it. We'll take it and we'll use it as a distraction for probably a little black tip reef shark or whatever it might have been. Um, yeah, so I was a bit ahead of everyone. Um, I had this other companion on me, which was pretty random. Steph had this found this nut floating in the water during our paddle together. She's like, "This might have water in it. This might have water in it." I go, "Nah, nah, it doesn't have. Like, it's not gonna have water. It's not a coconut. It's like a little random nut." And I managed to rip it open, um, and there was nothing in it. Discarded it, but inside it was a little crab, and this crab ran onto my arm and onto my back, and that crab ended up staying with me for 22 hours. It was my only companion for the second night, and it just like yeah, it was a random thing to have, but it was really grounding. And
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
he jumped on the back at that point and didn't leave me, which was
It's,
awesome.
it's like Wilson from Castaway.
It is. It is. It's classic. I
But
wish I
better.
gave him a good name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool because he'd move around. Like, I'd be paddling and one minute he'd be on my left shoulder, and then I wouldn't see him for like 20 minutes, and then he'd end up on my right wrist or something, and I'd be like, oh, cool. Like,
There you are.
yeah, there you are. You're still here, mate. We're in this together. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was pretty classic. But yeah. So I
So
was ahead of
go
everyone.
back. Yeah. So you're 100
Yeah,
meters ahead. The land's getting bigger. You're thinking we're on.
yeah. I'm thinking we're on. I'm thinking I've got this. This is sweet. I've had some bad days on the tools, and this is just another bad day. So we'll just punch it out, and we'll be there soon. And I'd stop and I'd turn around and look for the others. And when I'd finally see them, I'd turn back around, and the island would have shrunk dramatically within the space of, you know, anywhere between 2 and 10 minutes. And I'd be like, oh shit, like there's a current. There's a current. Like, I'm drifting, it's pulling me back away from the land rather than anywhere else. So I would be like, oh crap, I gotta go. I can't stop paddling here.
Is it changing the tide?
I don't know. We're getting close to the tidal change. It was probably still about 2 hours off from tidal change, but yeah, it was just pulling us in the wrong direction. And based on the way it was pulling, I'm not too good with oceans. I'm better with beaches. With doing nippers my whole life and surfing my whole life, I've got a good understanding of rips and currents and all these sort of jazz and sandbanks and things. But in the ocean, I'm complete beginner. And it felt like it was coming from one direction. So like a yeah, just a single directional push north to south. And I was like, okay, cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paddle to the east and then to the north and then to the west around the island, and then hope that the southerly push of the current pulls me into this island. But I need to go. I can't keep waiting. So I was like, all right, I'll wait for the others to catch up, take a bit of a rest. I'll watch this land just disappear slowly, like not disappear, but just get further and further away. And then I'm going to tell them the plan, and I'm going to go for it. So I sat up on the board and moved the shoulders around a bit. I had some Denka rubs. I put that on my shoulders, which just, loosened my muscles up and added some heat and a bit of vaso under the
Yeah.
arms.
You must have been
Must have
fairly
done.
broken at this point, though, right? Physically.
Oh yeah, exhausted,
Yeah.
exhausted. We'd had us 2 sips of water each when we first saw land, and that was the rest of our water. There was no more rain clouds, so we couldn't capture any water on our hats and hair like we'd done previous. Yeah, it was just like, you've already paddled all day. It's probably about 2 o'clock. And sorry, it's got a low battery warning, 10%. Might be all right. If it gets to 5, I'll have to quickly shoot off and grab a charger.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, like we were exhausted already. We pushed pretty hard so far, and just rhythmically, like and your eyes, that salt spray, and it was just hard to get a rhythm. You had to kind of like going up the chop and wave, you'd pull your chest up and then you push it down to go down the backside, and you'd end up like getting a bit of a rhythm, and you'd almost be like, I don't know, like kind of dolphining your way on top of the surface. And anyway, the others caught up, and I looked at them and I was like, shit, this is not good. Like, I've seen Will in some states over the years, big days canyoning and getting exhausted in the Blue Mountains and things, doing adventures out there. And looking at him, his eyes were pitch red, like the reddest eyes I'd ever seen in my life from just salt spray in the face for whatever, how many hours we'd already been out there and paddling. And Geordie looked spent. Steph was spent. We're all wigging. We're all going, what's going on? Why aren't we getting any closer? Like, what's happening? What's happening? And I just looked at them and I was like, shit, it's on me. Like, I've got this in the tank. And I was like, guys, I'm going to go wide. I'm going to go around this island and I'm going to drift back into it. It's going to be sweet. I'm going to get a boat. I've got to go now. All right, sweet, 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 sweet. And they're like, okay, okay. And I was like, all right, cool, bye. And just left. And like, yeah, that hindsight kicked back in, and
That's a
probably
hard
should have given
decision.
them all.
That's a hard
Was it?
decision for them and you, eh?
Yeah, it was. No, it was a real tough decision, but I had 10 minutes to think about it while they caught up. And I knew that it was the only decision I could make at that point. Watching the distance from them to the island just increasing, and myself just getting like exhausted trying to fight that current. I was like, nah, like something has to change. I can't just keep going dead ahead on this current. It's too strong.
Mm.
But if I go around it, it'll pull me into the island, potentially. This was my hypothesis. And yeah, like, I don't know how long it took for Steph to forgive me for not giving her a big hug and stuff like that. But it would have made everything a bit too doubtful in my mind had I gone like, guys, I might never see you again.
Yeah.
Like things have to happen, the decisions have to be made. You got to back yourself at the end of the day. And they're not easy decisions to make by any means. But, for me, I just saw it as a burden that I could bear for everyone else and a reason, to push. I couldn't keep waiting for everyone and I had to go out and go for it. And for me, that was the antithesis moment of when I had to kind of make that call and go for it. And yeah, it was regretful in the end. I wish I'd gone straight at it and just really pushed hard. And then if I'd failed, I would have drifted back to my friends. But that's hindsight. The beautiful thing about it.
I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have a mad surf story or know of one, get in touch by emailing me at james@dragonbrothersbooks.com. The following is a chapter of one of my surf novels. You can listen to the rest wherever you get your audiobooks, including Spotify, Audible, Apple Books and Google Play. Or if you like books made of paper, you can find them on my website at dragonbrothersbooks.com. Just click on the menu and select Books for Adults. Or you can buy them on Amazon. All the best. Lines, written and narrated by James Russell. Chapter 2, 3 months earlier. Bali's a trip, but maybe it's because it's the first time I've ever been anywhere other than Australia. On Instagram it's all golden sunsets and waterfalls and dreamy blue ocean, but the airport is a zoo and the drive across Bali is a smog-filled nightmare through gridlocked streets and the illusion well and truly shatters. An old man on a moped tries to overtake us and my taxi driver squeezes him until he actually nudges his handlebars. He wobbles like crazy, careens across the road into oncoming traffic and nearly gets mown down by a truck. My driver carries on without a sideways glance, and I can't decide whether he's blissfully unaware or simply doesn't give a shit. By the time I reach Uluwatu, I'm frazzled. It's the tail end of the season for swell, and there are only little waves out front, but as soon as I check into my losmen, I'm out there, washing off the trip. I catch a few little runners, but it's soft and mushy and the rising tide is only making it worse. I go back to the losmen and order a bintang. The sun starts to go down and finally it starts to feel like the ads. It seems I've picked the party losmen because there's a big group of Aussie lads and their girlfriends in the lounge and they're getting stuck into the beers and cocktails and the girls are laughing like hyenas. I listen in and they're funny fuckers and I get talking to one of the boys when he comes to the bar for a round of tequilas. His eyes are sporting an alcoholic glaze. It's their last night in Indo before they fly back to Sydney. For the past week they've been at G-Land with only small waves, and he's absolutely spewing because of course now they're about to leave, there's a decent swell on its way. He tells me that there are fuck all people staying at the camps there given that it's so late in the season. I'm glad to meet him because I haven't done my homework, other than the guy at my local surf shop telling me that I should head for Uluwatu. I dropped $800 on a new board that he said was perfect for Indonesian waves. He asks where I'm from, but when I tell him he hasn't heard of it, I say when you live as far north of Perth as I do, no one has ever heard of it. I'm 19 years old and I've been working as a sales rep for a photocopier business since I left school. I got the job in December and my mum was over the moon about it. She said it was a good, steady job, and the way she said it made me feel like it was the kind of job I'd still be at in my 40s when I'd be elevated to the lofty heights of middle management. They gave me a shitty Nissan diesel station wagon, which I thrashed up and down the coast to Perth, visiting every business and school who showed the remotest interest in photocopying anything. It always seemed like some kind of minor miracle when I actually sold one. At first, I liked having money in my pocket. I didn't realise quite how shit the wages were, but then I'd never had any money before. I spent it like water, buying all sorts of crap I didn't need and shouting slabs of beer for my mates. But when they buggered off to university in Perth in February, the novelty wore off. For a while, before each trip down the coast, I'd leave the office and go straight home to pick up my surfboard. There were some good spots on the route and I began to deliberately cancel some appointments to go surfing instead. But 3 months ago, my shithead boss had GPS trackers fitted to all the reps' cars, and like an asshole he'd call if any of us deviated even slightly off course. A year to the day of getting the job, he called me into his office and showed me a graph on his laptop that demonstrated how badly the sales figures from my area had declined since I'd joined the company. He told me I had an attitude problem and went on and on about how I needed to pull my socks up if I wanted to get anywhere in this game. I couldn't stifle a choking laugh when he said that, and he totally lost it then. He started shouting at me and came around the desk and leaned over me. I guessed it was a technique for asserting dominance that he probably learned at one of the sales conferences that he was always going to. As he yelled, flecks of spit flew out of his mouth and landed on my face, and I saw that he knew it had happened, and I wiped it away, but he didn't apologise. He kept spewing his shit. I looked up into his purple, enraged face, and something shifted in me. I stood up and told him to fuck off. He backed away. He couldn't believe it. He gaped like a goldfish, speechless, and before he could figure out what to say to me, I turned and walked out of his office. It took me 2 minutes to get my stuff from my desk, and I left. I caught the bus home. My mum was gutted. She went spare for 15 minutes solid, and then went straight out and bought the newspaper so I could start looking for another job. But I was suddenly sickened by the idea of staying another day in my shitty town, let alone the rest of my life. I had just under $5,000 in my bank account. That night I looked online and found a flight to London with a stopover in Denpasar for $1,600, and I booked it without a second thought. I told my mum in the morning and she said nothing. Her mouth went into a hard line and she stared into her breakfast and then got up and went to work. She seemed to forgive me a bit over Christmas, but I felt more guilty than ever because it was so miserable. Just me and her sitting together eating a rolled turkey roast on our laps and watching telly. I got a friend to drop me to the airport yesterday. I never even called my dad. I hadn't spoken to him in months anyway. I haven't surfed in 3 months, and before the bloke at the surf shop talked me into buying the surfboard, I was considering not bringing one at all. But now that I'm here and listening to this lad telling me about his previous trips to G-Land over the years, I feel the return of a familiar buzz. When I tell him I have a plane ticket to London booked for a week's time and no other plans, his face lights up. He holds up his beer bottle, releases his forefinger from its frosted surface, and points it at me. "You jammy fucking bastard," he says. "If you're not gone out of here to G-Land by the time I drag my sorry ass out of bed tomorrow morning, I'm going to punch you in the face." He invites me to join him and his mates, but I can see that I'm way too far behind, and I tell him thanks, but no. I have a couple more beers on my own at the bar and look up G-Land on my phone. For the rest of the evening, whenever I catch his eye, he grins and points at me and smacks his fist into his palm. At 6:30 the next morning, I'm at Kuta Reef, boarding the G-Land ferry. I'm taking a gamble that they'll have a bed for me, and sure enough, when we arrive, there's loads of places, and I get a plush room at Bobby's surf camp. It's pretty flash given we're in the jungle, and it's going to eat through my cash quickly, but as soon as I see the setup out front, I don't care. The waves are only 2 foot, but they're as perfect as I've ever seen. If I can pick the juice out of the coming swell, I'll head back to Bali afterwards and save my money by searching out the cheapest place I can find until I leave for London. Sure enough, the waves turn on the next day. It's not as big as forecast, but it's still a solid 6 foot, and I'm immediately thankful that it's no bigger. It's just getting light when I walk down to the water's edge. A mauve dawn slowly graduates through burnt orange and nectarine, the waves like gold foil rippling and furling across the reef. Finally, the sun lifts above the land behind me, and the sea goes teal, and the reef seems to rise, its jewels suddenly studding the sea floor. I walk across the coral, and the water is as warm as blood. There's a wave-hungry crew battling at the top of the point. I watch them all paddle out at first light, and I see them hassling and dropping in on each other, so I leave them to it and sit 100 metres down the line. It proves a good decision. With all their scrapping, they're pushing each other way too deep, and every fourth wave claims a scalp and rolls through to me empty, a gorgeous canvas of aquamarine blue. Catching them when they're already in the business of barreling is tricky, but I'm feeling good. My body is fit and strong from the labouring, and I paddle into them hard with everything I've got. I realise that I've missed this, the purity of it, the simplicity. I catch a few mid-sized waves and they're things of absolute beauty, cylindrical, crystalline, sinuous. I simply race them down the line, marvelling at the uniformity of them, the ease. Then I get brave and paddle into a wave that's a little bigger, but disfigured by a double-up swell coming at a slightly different angle. It goes funky immediately, and the double-up sucks an alarming amount of water off the reef. I get my ass kicked. I scramble to my feet too early and the bottom drops out of the wave. I drift up into the lip and go over the falls, a zero-gravity, twisting eternity before I'm slammed down again, sent deep, and my butt hits the reef. I'm reeling, the wind knocked out of me, and I come up clutching my ass, feeling for damage. Pulling myself onto my board, I strain to look, but it seems I've gotten away with it. There's no bloody smear seeping through my board shorts. I paddle up the point slowly, heading well out into the channel, then sit for a minute to catch my breath. Outside, a darkening horizon, shades deeper than I've yet seen, heralds a freak set. I can see the ridges like a distant mountain range. I lie on my board and paddle hard, deeper into the channel. I'm in no mood for another pasting so soon. The first wave of the set is perhaps a foot bigger, and one of the local Indo rippers manages to get into it, paddling hard, springing to his feet and free-falling down the face. He's like a cat, sure-footed and nimble, unperturbed by the insane drop. He simply knifes up and pulls into a magical-looking cavern. He fizzes by me, sporting a toothy grin. When I crest that wave, I see the next one is of an entirely different species. It is already broken and the crew at the top of the point are scrambling, caught inside, abandoning their boards and diving for the sea floor. I race for the channel, shitting myself. The wave is 8 to 10 foot. It's hard to tell. I think I'm in for a savage drubbing, but then the wave seems to pull back, to adhere to the reef a little tighter. I suddenly realise that I'm in the spot. I'm filled with an impulsive, fatalistic urge that, I have to admit, feels good and frightening at the same time. I've never caught a wave even close to this size. I paddle hard and flat and I'm rising, and the thing is feathering, and inside there's a grinding roar as it turns itself inside out. I almost pull back because the kaleidoscopic coral spread across the ocean floor seems to rise, thinning the water at the wave's base. I can hardly believe that I'm trying to catch this thing, but as I begin to slide, all rational thought is rendered irrelevant. Muscle memory and base instinct take over, and I get in one more good stroke before I spring to my feet. A freshening offshore lifts spray from the wave face, and for a moment I'm blinded, blinking to clear my vision. The wave rockets me forward with a power I've never felt before, and the drop seems endless. My bottom turn is nothing more than a long arc, and then I'm slung along the face at a speed I can scarcely credit. I reset and trim, and finally get a decent look at it. The wave towers above me, and ahead it lurches out of the ocean as though it might go on forever. I'm too deep, and I think I'm gone, that there's no way I can get myself way out along there, on the face. The great glass slab of its lip blots out the sky, but I manage to pump hard, once, twice, and the board responds beneath me. I'm low on the face, but the wave throws so hard and square that I don't need to set a high line, and in fact I'd probably lose my edge if I tried. I'm suddenly enclosed in the tube, locked in, a passenger on a roller coaster. I'm as stiff as a board, in a survival crouch, but there's room enough inside the barrel for my errors. Then, as I speed through the barrel, something happens. Maybe it's because I realise that there's a chance of an exit, and the possibility sends synaptic signals from my brain to my body. I stand a little taller, reach out with my trailing hand and feel the thrum in my fingers as I touch the face of the wave. A millisecond is all it takes. I'm suddenly connected, filled with knowledge that feels primordial, base. Time seems to slow. This rotating crystal cylinder seems to stop, to glitch. My body moulds itself to the movement of the tube. My legs and feet act independently, making minute adjustments to the direction, the trim. Then, like a spell broken, I'm suddenly ejected, skimming across a face that's distorting and warping and about to go dry, and I pull off in a kind of reverie. I don't hoot or say a word. All I can hear is my own breath, coming in short, excited gasps.